Will the guests please rise for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the national anthem. NPTU Charleston, attention. Huh. Nuclear Power Training Unit, Charleston, arriving. AUKUS Integration and Acquisition Program Manager, arriving. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the invocation by Chaplain Brady.
Good morning. Let us pray. Eternal and loving God, we humbly bow our heads and lift our hearts to you in thanksgiving for the grand accomplishment of these sailors gathered together today in this graduation. God, it was you that put it into the hearts of these graduates to join the world's greatest navy and pursue the path of a nuclear sailor, leading them to Nuclear Power Training Unit, Charleston. It was you, O God, that infused these graduates with grit and grace to not only excel in their studies, but to navigate through the numerous challenges they encountered on their journey that has culminated in this graduation. Merciful Lord, remember and bless the families near and far who believed in, supported this graduating class, the officers and the chiefs who mentored them, as well as the civilian instructors and staff of our training unit who helped guided them to success. And as this class prepares to go out into the fleet to the tip of the spear, we ask that wherever they are assigned, that they know, God, that you will go before them and stand with them as the one who orders our steps and props us up on every leaning side, so that no error becomes eternal and no fall becomes fatal and no problem more powerful than your grace that is able to sustain and propel us through. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Please be seated. NPTU Charleston, at ease. Admiral Reifsteck, Brigadier General Wilkinson, Captain Kep, Ward Training Ship Commanding Officer, Commander Bacon, Site Command Master Chief Montello, distinguished guests, friends, family. Welcome to Naval Nuclear Power Training Unit Charleston graduation ceremony for Class 2304. I'm Commander John Fitzpatrick, the Site Executive Officer for NPTU. We are very pleased that you could join us as we recognize these sailors who have dedicated so much of their time and effort in this final phase of their training. While we will recognize throughout the ceremony those students who stand out from their peers, it is important to remember that each student dedicated thousands of hours in pursuit of this moment. Today is about the accomplishments of our sailors as they complete the Naval Nuclear Propulsion Training Pipeline. Please join me in a round of applause for all of the friends, family, and shipmates who have played a large part in these sailors' success. You have our heartfelt thanks. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Nuclear Power Training Unit Charleston Commanding Officer. Captain Reed Kep is a career submariner who has had command of USS Colorado and is now in the first of his major command tours. Captain.
Hey, morning, everybody. It's like a quiet room. Is anybody hot? This happens on these hot South Carolina days. We get in here and we're like, got to figure out some way to get everybody moving. Hey, welcome. I'm glad everybody's here. This is an awesome day, a lot of accomplishments that we get to celebrate. This is certainly about our graduates. It's about the families, and so we're glad you're here. I want to give a few shout outs, a little bit of an education, and then I'll introduce our guest speaker, and then we'll get on with it. So, hey, first off, for the Patriots Point staff, I want to thank them. I mean, we're here on the former USS Yorktown, one of our nation's original aircraft carriers, and I can't think of a better venue to send our next set of warfighters out to the fleet to replenish our troops. And so our Patriots Point staff, which you see around here, enables that every 8 weeks as we graduate 300 to 400 sailors and officers. And so I want to give a shout out to the Patriots Point staff. All right, I'd like to just acknowledge a couple groups. So if you're willing and able to stand, and if you are a veteran, I would appreciate if you stand so we could acknowledge you. Thank you so much. That's an impressive group, and we can see that it's your influence and your encouragement that's enabled the next generation of folks to stand up and serve, so thank you. Hey, next group, also if you're willing and able, if you're a spouse of someone graduating today, I would appreciate it if you would stand so we could acknowledge you. Hey, thank you so much. Over the years, I've come to appreciate so much and have an appreciation for the key role you play as you step up for command ombudsman and key spouse positions and family readiness group and adjust yourselves to moves around the world, various places in the country, help shipmates and families as they move in next door and just adjust. And it's just been phenomenal to watch. We can't do it without you. I'm proud to be part of it, and thanks. I'd love to serve alongside of you, so thank you for that. Okay, let's see. So let's talk about a little bit of education. We'll talk about what my staff is and what it takes to go through this qualification program. So to get through prototype or nuclear power training unit, we're the last leg of the training pipeline that goes anywhere from about 12 to 18 months. To accomplish that, we use two critical training platforms. So they're converted fast attack Los Angeles class submarines that we use to certify our nuclear operators. We use that in conjunction with about 300,000 square feet of facilities that include state-of-the-art training facilities, fully immersive simulation technology, and we build on a ladder of learning to achieve a very high standard of level of knowledge based on watchstanding principles. And to do that, we work 24/7, 365 days a year. It takes about 12 to 1,400 active duty Navy staff and about 300 Naval Nuclear Laboratory civilian employees again, that operate 24/7, 365, operating our reactors, maintaining the plants from a maintenance, training, and operations perspective. They do that amazingly. And I will hear from some of you after the ceremony. They're like, do you mean Christmas too? Yes. Every day of the year, we have staff supporting the training mission and maintaining our reactors. And so I would like to give a shout out to my staff. Hey, so now let me talk about who's graduating today and who you're going to see walking across the stage and just what did they do. And so this is a pretty extensive list, so bear with me. Now, I'm also a parent of 4 kids that have served in the military and serving and in college. And so if you're like me, you might have sat around the dinner table and tried to get information out, and you might have came out with about something like good. Like, you know what I mean? You ever had that? Okay, so I'm going to expound on the good as much as I can. Okay, so who's graduating today? So you're going to see, I'll talk about the officers first. So you'll see a group walk, you'll see some officers walk, and we call them SWO-NUCs, Surface Warfare Officers. They've already served an initial tour on a non-nuclear combatant vessel and got their warfare qualifications and are now getting that nuclear certification to go serve on their first aircraft carrier stationed around the world. So exciting for them. For many of the ensigns and some Lieutenant JGs, they are reporting, or have went through the program and are going to be reporting to their first submarine. And whether that's a fast attack submarine, a ballistic missile submarine, a guided missile submarine, whether it's in a maintenance availability, forward deployed, operational, that's what they're getting ready to do. And so they've been through a year of this training as well. Okay, some of our officers are also what we call DIOs, or direct input officers. These are officers we recruited out of college on a 5-year contract to go through the same rigorous nuclear qualification training, but instead of reporting to the fleet, they're going to stay here with me at the training command. They'll stand watch on the nuclear reactor. They'll be very engaged in training our next generation of officers and sailors as we get ready to transfer them to the fleet. You'll also see some civilians walk across stage. These are employed by Naval Nuclear Laboratory, and they are hired on. They go through the same qualification process, and they are embedded in the training mission. They stand the same watches, operate the plant at the same high standards, and are integral to us accomplishing the training mission that we need to do to keep our fleet going. Okay, now for our enlisted sailors, an impressive group, right? So the various rates. The first one I'll talk about we call reactor operators, or you'll hear them called electronics technicians nuclear. These individuals are in charge of the actual reactor. They move the control rods, give us the power that we need for propulsion and for the services on the ship. You'll also see electronics, electricians mate nuclear, are electrical operators. They operate our load distribution, our electric plants, for what we need for our hotel services on the ship, to support all the auxiliary system. They have an impressive maintenance and operations load across all platforms. Can't do it without them either. Now, our mechanics is what we call mechanical operators, our machinists mate nuclear. These individuals are in charge of operating our high energy steam systems, our hydraulic systems, all our supporting systems as well. Very tough job, very important, very impressive what they do. From the mechanics, we will select an additional group of folks that you'll hear called ELTs. That stands for Engineering Laboratory Technician. Once we select them from the graduates today, they will come back to the schoolhouse with me for a few more weeks and receive additional training and certifications on the chemical and radiological controls of our nuclear plants, both primary and secondary, to maintain a high integrity of those systems so they can continue the operations that we needed them to do forward deployed around the world day and night. Okay, so it's really important for what they do. Okay, so sounds like a lot, right? That's not all. So we also want to make sure that we give opportunities for all of our team to invest in their professional and personal development, right? So there's also different schools that you'll hear folks coming across the stage that are going to, like you might hear welder school. That's a nuclear welder school. We have about 60 positions of that a year we fill to go serve on our submarines across the fleet. Also propulsion plant local area network. I say that slow. PP land, so think IT for our nuclear systems. Again, a tough job. Some will be going to a design school if they're going to one of the new submarines, particularly the Columbia-class submarine. That's something you'll hear about. Okay, and then some have been selected in this class to be a junior staff instructor. So they'll come back and they'll serve with me for 2 years as well before they go out to fleet. So very important position there as well. Okay, awesome. one more opportunity I want to just really point out. As some folks are walking across the stage, or you see them here at the ceremony, some will be wearing 2 stripes, right? So those are chevrons on their arms. So some will be wearing 2. What those individuals took the opportunity to do is participate in what we call our Star Re-enlistment program. The qualifications for that program are 21 months of good service and certification as a nuclear operator, right, in good standing with the Navy. So once they get their qualification certification, which they've all done here recently, have done that, they can make a decision to Star Re-enlist. And what that does is it commits them to 2 additional years on their contract. However, it's not at sea, it's 2 years on shore duty, so it's a great opportunity to get a guaranteed shore duty to figure out what you want to do with the rest of your career. And if you're lucky, that'll be back here with me at Prototype, right? Yeah. Okay, what it also does is it gives them an automatic advancement to E5, or second class petty officer, which you'll see with the second stripe. It also allows them the opportunity to live out in town on the economy, and they will receive a basic housing allowance to do that, so it's a great advantage. And they also will receive an SRB, so a selective re-enlistment bonus. I'll tell you, for this class, really impressive numbers. Over 150 sailors have made this choice, so we're awarding about $9 million in bonuses for an average of about $60,000 per sailor that made to do this. So a range of somewhere in the 40s to 90s of what we're seeing for the selective re-enlistment bonus. So why do I tell you that? One, I want you to know what your sailors are doing, importantly, and if you got some folks, if all you've heard is good, now I've got some information for you to talk about at the dinner table or in the car, and you're like, well, there's some good decisions and some mentoring that can go on. Okay, so great. So now, over to you. Hey, for the crowd, for the families and friends that traveled in, I want to get to know you just a little bit. So what I'd like to do is know, like, this is interactive too, by the way. Who thinks they travel from the farthest? So if you, or you just want to say where you came from. So like, who thinks they travel from the farthest? Ohio, all right. Arizona? California, I heard of Texas. Hawaii, oh, there's a Texas. Who can be Hawaii? Alaska, all right, we had one of those last ceremony. Hawaii and Alaska, does that take it? All right, well done, Hawaii and Alaska. And Texas is not farther than Hawaii, just so you know. I just want to make sure. My Master Chief is from Texas, so I'd just like to have fun with him. Hey, the last thing before I introduce our guest speaker is that I was just talking to some of your sailors, taking some selfies back there as well. And one of the things they told me is they're super happy their family and friends are here. And they actually said they really like it when their family calls them out and embarrasses them a little bit. That's what they were telling me. And they said they love things like, I love my sailor, that's my sailor. They love that, they said. They got some really good nicknames they love to hear, right? I would just ask you to keep that PG if you don't mind. And so, yeah, this is about you. We want you to have fun with us. So like the XO said, please come up, take some pictures with your family. We'll make sure that you get an opportunity to do that. So really looking forward to that. Hey, and without further ado, let me introduce our guest speaker, Rear Admiral Reifstack, a career submariner, a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy. He had command of the fast attack submarine USS Hampton and also command of Submarine Development Squadron 5 and is currently serving in his flag assignment as the program manager for the AUKUS Integration Program. It's a mouthful, but super excited to have him here. And please welcome Rear Admiral Reifstack.
All right, so luckily I know what I wanted to say. It'll probably be better without the notes anyway. My name is Lincoln Reifstack. I'm down from D.C. I'm glad to get out of D.C. and be back with the people that I can relate to, which are young men and women that go to sea and underpin American sovereignty, security, and a kind of worldwide adherence to law-based norms. And so I'm excited. I'm really excited. I love the Navy. I love the submarine force, and I think a lot of what the graduates here today have accomplished. It's amazing. I was telling some of the folks this morning, I went through this program in 1996, and I think we stopped by the base conference center on the way off of the base and got it almost felt like it was a handwritten, like typewriter paper, like, hey, congratulations, you did it. Car was still running, and I went off to Groton to sub school. So I'm glad that we properly celebrate the achievement, because it's a tough program. It's an important program that's probably misunderstood by most Americans on how important it is for our sovereignty and our security. So I want to highlight how happy I am to see all these folks today. General Wilkinson, sorry, normally in the Navy we do the distinguished visitors. So General Wilkinson, sorry for that protocol snub. Captain Kep, Commander Bacon, who's the CO of the MTS 701, great to be with you all today and for the opportunity. For those veterans folks, I just want to double down on what the captain said on really thanking you for, you know what it's like to serve, for instilling that in your family members, and for continuing to trust and encourage that sacrifice. And for those of you who are not veterans, to take that blind leap that your U.S. Navy is the place for your son and daughter, to encourage that service, to trust us, to use them appropriately as part of our long line of security. I'm really humbled as the customer of the fleet out there. It's great to have awesome folks from all over the country and all over the world that do it, so thank you for that. The spouses, well, actually, let me ask, is anybody engaged to one of the graduates, or any fiancés here today? Oh, yes, ma'am, thank you. So I would highlight you as fierce and brave probably in the face of the unknown right now. And thank you. And for folks that are already married, if you haven't gone through some of the military cycles of moves and deployments, it can be challenging. I don't think we should say it's not. When I was a young lieutenant getting ready to be married, my best friend, his family was a submarine family who had kind of got me interested in giving it a try. And the mom, or the wife, kind of said to me, said, you're going to go to sea. It might be for weekly ops. In submarine, we call it weekly ops on a fast attack submarine. You get underway on Monday, you come home on Friday, you go out and practice. And then you do your deployment. On the carriers, they'll do workups, maybe a few days or up to a few weeks, and then they'll do their deployments. And so what Susan told me was, hey, you're going to come back. It might be after weekly ops, it might be after deployment, and you're going to find out everybody was fine without you. They figured it out. They lived. And so you can come home and you can be upset that the socks don't go in the drawer where you were used to them, or where you would prefer, or the way that the dishes go in and out of the dishwasher aren't the way you would do it. You can focus on that, and you can be really unhappy. Or you can treat every one of these reunions as kind of like a blessing, and I don't mean that religiously, but really like live your life like it's 1,000 honeymoons. And it is great guidance. I'm 29 years in submarine time, 33 years in total in the Navy. And I'd come home as the captain of the Hampton. Anybody going to the Hampton? Anybody? Yes, please don't let me forget when you come across the stage, because I need to make sure I get a picture with you. So I'd come home as a captain of the Hampton, right? What's the captain of the Hampton? You're kind of cranky by nature, right? You got to drive people to be better. We have to make the ship better. And so you come home, and that doesn't play with your family. They're not ready for you to be the captain at the house, or the chief petty officer of the house, or the leading first-class petty officer of the house. That's not their gig, right? And so, if I hadn't kind of recalibrated myself, my wife is very astute at this, and she would just say, hey, what about that 1,000 honeymoons thing? Whoosh, instant deflation. So I'd offer you that. If you're military spouse, military family, maybe try it on. Maybe it'll help you keep your perspective and celebrate what you're coming back to, instead of focusing on what you've missed while you're gone. A little bit about nuclear power. So this pipeline is really amazing. It's a really mature industrial model, if you will, or corporate model on how much time, personnel from the captain's staff we invest in folks so that they are ready to operate these ships. And I didn't recognize that. Like I said, I went through here in 1996, and I was on to the next thing, and glad to not be in shift work for a couple weeks, and all those things, because I just wasn't thinking about it the right way. But as I think back now, I know that this program made it so I knew how to qualify on my submarine when I got there. It made it so I knew what the right standard was, so when folks were tired or had been run ragged on the ship and maybe were straying from that, I knew what right looked like, and I could help be part of the team and get them back on track. I was really well prepared really well prepared to succeed when I went out to USS Alaska on January 6, 1997. And so I'm very thankful for this program for that. I hope that you as graduates here going off to the fleet can have a little perspective on the fact that you do understand the watchstanding principles that are underpinning of safety. And then for the families and for the students, I don't know that we always do the best at giving you the perspective about what we're really doing and why we're doing it. And so why nuclear? Well, nuclear powers our 11 aircraft carriers and every one of our 68 submarines. Just brought New Jersey into the fleet last week, 68 submarines. And so that is, I would say, our submarine force. I'm biased, I'm a submariner, but that is the insurance policy for America. So the SSBNs, that is our survivable nuclear deterrent to make sure that the world doesn't have a nuclear war. Plain and simple. It's what wore out the Soviet Union. It's what keeps the peace today. Our fast attack submarine force, we are persistently at sea. We're stealthy. No one knows where we're at. We bring firepower, and we are on scene and unseen for months. And so at the time and choice of our choosing, if our adversaries take us on, it'll be the submarine force that beats that back initially until we bring in what wins wars, and that's the United States aircraft carrier. So the folks that take our aircraft carriers to sea, the nuclear power plant is what makes it get there fast. It's what makes it able to sustain high-tempo operations with a lot of electrical power generated, with the amount of relative motion it takes to launch fighter aircraft, and that's what makes our enemies fear, and that's what makes our allies very proud of the decisions they've made to come with us. It's all based on nuclear power. It doesn't happen without it, and it doesn't happen without, the last 70 years, we've trained 28,000 officers, 127,000 enlisted nuclear trained operators, about 2,300 civilians, and it's an underplayed national treasure, what your sons and daughters, husbands, boyfriends, sisters are doing today. So I guess I'll give you a couple other tidbits. How many of you students cringed that I said 28,000 and not 28,000? Any of you like, that guy's not talking the way we talk? Right, because I'm talking to your parents, but if I was in the audience, I'd be, that guy is so off base on the formality right now, because we have you trained to do it right. And so I applaud you if you were kind of thinking that guy up there is crazy for talking like he's talking, and you're going to do great in the fleet with that mentality. So we'll get going here in a second. Let me offer you a couple other things. We all came to the Navy for a reason. Remember what that reason was and get what you came for. One of our sailors said, hey, I'm in for life. I can't wait to get to the fleet. I love that. Some of you might still be thinking it through, or today might say, hey, I'm doing my required time, and then I'm going to use this as a good experience, and that's fine too. But I'd say get what you came for. If you're choosing a Hawaii ship because you want to learn to kite surf, and 3 or 4 months into that tour, you haven't signed up for that first kite surfing lesson, you're doing yourself a disservice, right? Get what you came for that 5 years, or that 35 years if you end up in the case that I'm at, that you get what you came for in life, in your education, in your career. And go out there knowing that you're well trained and you're ready. The fleet's excited to have you. And, old folks like me, we drive desks. It's young folks like you that drive ships, and we're eternally grateful that you do. So for that, I'll close. It's been a real pleasure to be with you today. It's awe-inspiring to see so many families and friends here, and to be part of this broad community, this broader lifestyle where we bring families inside a ship, families inside a family, and we blend them all together into just a global enterprise that has made all the difference in my life, and that I'm very proud to be a part of. So thank you today.
Thank you, Admiral. The Navy League, represented by Captain James Lyons, retired, takes pride in recognizing sailors that stand out amongst their peers. Mr. Lyons is the president of the Naval Submarine League Charleston chapter, and he is also a retired Navy submariner who has had command of USS James K. Polk and the Naval Satellite Operations Center in Point Mugu, California.
Good morning and welcome to Charleston. I'm representing 2 organizations, the Charleston Navy League and also the Charleston Naval Submarine League. And I'm also a graduate of prototype class of 7402. That was a long time ago. We have some certificates today for 2 graduates, and I'll read one of them. The Navy League of the United States congratulates EMN3 Jose Rhodes, USN, for special recognition as the Enlisted Honor Graduate, NPTU, class of 2304. In appreciation for your service to our country and your devotion to duty, we take great pride in enrolling you in the Navy Memorial Log, thus preserving for future generations of Americans a permanent record of your service in the United States Navy. Signed, James Offutt, President, Charleston Chapter, the Navy League of the United States.
Second awardee, EMN2 Nathaniel Smith. Commanding Officer's Personal Excellence Award is presented to the sailor chosen from each crew who exhibits the greatest degree of professionalism. The selection criteria for this award takes into consideration student effort, motivation, adaptability, personal development, and performance of duty. Following sailors are the winners of the Commanding Officer's Personal Excellence Award. EMN3 Bryce Balil. MMN3 Christopher Hoey. EMN3 Dante Satimo. And EMN3 Jamari Gift. And now for Class 2304. ETN2 Joel Abundes, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit, Massachusetts. EMN3 Ashton Ames, headed to USS Ronald Reagan. MMN3 Anthony Alexander, headed to ELT School. MMN3 Jordan Anaya Bickerson, headed to USS John C. Stennis. ETN3 Joshua Andre, headed to USS Carl Vinson. Lieutenant Junior Grade Nicholas Armenta, headed to USS Abraham Lincoln. MMN3 Christelle Aussay, headed to ELT School. MMN3 Jefferson Azana, headed to ELT School. MMN3 Isabella Baird, headed to ELT School. EMN3 Jesse Barthuli, headed to USS Henry M. Jackson. MMN3 Jonah Beck, headed to ELT School. ETN3 Amir Bay Brown. Still working on orders for him. EMN2 Jafin Barondivu, headed to USS Ronald Reagan. MMN3 Vincent Blowing, headed to ELT School. MMN3 George Bohm, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit John F. Kennedy. ETN2 Paul Bricker, headed to USS Ronald Reagan. Ensign Casimir Buskey, headed to USS Alabama Blue. EMN3 Khalil Bird, headed to USS Wyoming. MMN3 Elijah Cannon, headed to USS Annapolis. MMN3 Malornjake Carlos, headed to ELT School. EMN3 Edward Carpenter, headed to USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. EMN3 James Chapman, headed to USS Virginia. ETN2 Jacob Charay, headed to USS John C. Stennis. EMN3 Samuel Christian, headed to USS Harry S. Truman. Ensign William Conroy, headed to USS Colorado. EMN3 Robert Crenshaw, headed to USS Nevada Gold. MMN3 Miguel David, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit John F. Kennedy. MMN3 Hans Carlo Dieto, headed to ELT School. Lieutenant Junior Grade Raymond DeCamelis, headed to USS Abraham Lincoln. MMN3 Thomas Durbin, headed to USS Abraham Lincoln. EMN3 Isaiah Edwards, headed to USS George H.W. Bush. ETN3 Richard Escobedo, headed to USS Carl Vinson. MMN3 Lucas Favor, headed to ELT School. EMN3 Hunter Fioredo, remaining at MPTU Charleston as a junior staff instructor. Mr. Adam Fleetwood, remaining at NPTU Charleston as a civilian instructor. MMN3 Arlo Fowles, headed to USS John C. Stennis. ETN3 Damon Garner, headed to USS Ronald Reagan. EMN2 Michael Gianalo, headed to USS John C. Stennis. ETN2 Dylan Graves, headed to USS Boise. Ensign Dalton Green, remaining at NPTU Charleston as an instructor. Lieutenant Junior Grade Ethan Green, headed to USS John C. Stennis. EMN 3 Torrin Gross, headed to USS Abraham Lincoln. Lieutenant Junior Grade Ethan Guerra, headed to USS Theodore Roosevelt. Lieutenant Junior Grade Kyle Hansen, headed to USS Harry S. Truman. MMN2 William Hardy, headed to USS Maryland Gold. EMN3 Jonathan Haywood, headed to USS Mississippi. EMN2 Mark Hernandez, headed to USS Henry M. Jackson Gold. MMN2 Joshua Hicks, headed to USS John C. Stennis. EMN3 Cranar Hoja, headed to USS Gerald R. Ford. MMN3 Luke Hurlbutt, headed to USS Nimitz. ETN3 Anthony Ingerbretson, headed to USS Ronald Reagan. Ensign Hayden Johnson, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit, Idaho. Ensign Peter Jude, headed to USS Florida. MMN3 Brandon Keene, headed to ELT School. Lieutenant Junior Grade Ian Kearns, headed to USS George Washington. ETN3 Robert Klunk, headed to USS New Mexico. ETN3 Alexander Cook, headed to USS Abraham Lincoln. ETN3 Justin Colster, headed to USS Carl Vinson. EMN3 Jake Kozerski, headed to USS Theodore Roosevelt. MMN3 Cameron Cruz, headed to USS California. EMN3 Gavin Kuhar, headed to USS Henry M. Jackson. ETN3 Sean Coleman, headed to USS North Carolina. ETN3 Mason Lambert, headed to USS Rhode Island Blue. ETN3 Aaron Lawhon, headed to USS George H.W. Bush. MMN3 Ashton Lawson, headed to USS Alabama. MMN3 James Leach, headed to USS Delaware. ETN2 Seth Leone, headed to USS Florida Gold. MMN3 Adrian Louie, headed to USS Newport News. ETN3 Jake Lovelace, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit John F. Kennedy. MMN3 Alexander Lyons, headed to USS Albany. Lieutenant Junior Grade Zachary Mado, headed to USS Ronald Reagan. EMN 3 Robert Mantle, headed to USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. MMN 3 Vincent Matthews, headed to ELT school. EMN 3 Dylan May, headed to USS Nevada, blue. EMN 3 Derek McMasters, headed to USS Gerald R. Ford. MMN 3 Jordan Meisenheimer, headed to USS George Washington. MMN 3 George Mendoza, headed to USS Abraham Lincoln. Lieutenant Junior Grade Sebastian Michko, headed to USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. ETN 3 Dominic Miller, headed to USS Delaware. ETN 3 Ethan Miller, headed to USS Theodore Roosevelt. EMN 3 Dylan Miller, headed to USS Pennsylvania. ETN 3 Tyler Mitchell, headed to USS Ohio. EMN 3 Jacob Mixon, headed to USS West Virginia. EMN 3 Akira Morrison, headed to USS Abraham Lincoln. MMN 3 Theodore Morton, headed to ELT school. MMN 3 Ryan Miller, headed to ELT school. MMN 3 Daniel Mulligan, headed to ELT school. MMN 3 Casey Neal, headed to ELT school. MMN 3 Jeriel Negron Cordero, headed to ELT school. MMN 3 Walter Nordine, headed to ELT school. ETN 3 John Ulmer, remaining at NPTU Charleston as a junior staff instructor. EMN 2 Charles Peterson, headed to USS George H.W. Bush. MMN 3 Darius Pionic, headed to ELT school. ETN 3 Brian Pratt, headed to USS George H.W. Bush. MMN 3 Sean Pritchett, headed to USS Theodore Roosevelt. MMN 3 Sean Ramsey, headed to ELT school. EMN 3 John Reynolds, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit, Massachusetts. EMN 3 Josie Rhodes, headed to USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. MMN 3 Jacob Ruff, headed to USS Columbus.
Oh, I'm jealous. I was a Columbus sailor.
MMN 3 Austin Ruda, headed to ELT school. MMN 3 Evan Sawyer, headed to USS John C. Stennis. MMN 3 Garrett Schaub, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit John F. Kennedy. MMN 3 Thomas Schwartz, headed to USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. MMN 3 Joseph Schweitzer, headed to ELT School. EMN 3 Jonathan Scott, headed to USS Abraham Lincoln. MMN 3 Grace Ann Sevesand, headed to ELT School. MMN 3 Ephraim Silvasan, headed to USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. EMN 2 Nathaniel Smith, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit John F. Kennedy. BTN 3 Orion Stevenson, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit John F. Kennedy. ETN 3 Caleb Sweet, headed to USS George H.W. Bush. MMN 3 Noah Terry, headed to ELT School. MMN 3 Henry Thompson, headed to USS George H.W. Bush. MMN 3 William Tombso, headed to ELT School. ETN 2 Jacob Trent, headed to USS Carl Vinson. ETN 3 Rixander Trochet Torres, headed to USS George H.W. Bush. MMN 3 Mark Vandervoort, headed to ELT School. EMN 2 Michael Vennard, headed to USS Abraham Lincoln. ETN 2 Caleb Wagner, headed to USS Nimitz. MMN 3 Lincoln Walker, headed to USS John C. Stennis. EMN 3 Darren Wawaruntu, headed to USS George Washington. EMN 3 Octavio Webb, headed to USS Carl Vinson. ETN 3 Jeremiah Weinstein, headed to USS Oregon. ETN 3 Hiram Werger, headed to USS Abraham Lincoln. EMN 3 Grant Whitaker, headed to USS George Washington. MMN 3 Cole White, headed to USS Abraham Lincoln. ETN 3 Eli Wiley, headed to USS Ohio. Ensign Jeffrey Wilhock, headed to USS Indiana. MMN 3 Liam Wilmuth, headed to ELT School. Ensign Megan Wolf, headed to USS Delaware. EMN 3 Arias York, headed to USS Theodore Roosevelt. Here you go, Admiral. Ensign Andrew Bent, headed to USS Hampton. Please give a round of applause for all of our graduates. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the benediction by Chaplain Brady.
Let's bow our heads. Now, O gracious Lord, as this graduation comes to an end, we prepare to leave this place. We ask that your loving presence go with us. When adversity comes to us as we attempt to stand our watch, be near us. And when anxiety shackles our hearts and grips our minds, steady us, so we will look back on this day with thanksgiving and forward to our future with abiding hope. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Reifsteck will re-enlist a large group of your sailors, similar to what the captain was talking about, that star re-enlistment, on the forward into the ship in Hangar Bay 1 right after this ceremony. Friends and family, please feel free to join us as soon as I dismiss the crew here in just a few moments. Once again, congratulations to the graduates. Thank you, family, friends, and shipmates for being here today. On behalf of the commanding officer, technical director, and site command master chief, I wish you all fair winds and following seas. NPTU Charleston, attention, dismissed.